All right, one consistent theme, and Hadley touched on it here, is this idea that many of the candidates might be a little left of center. That might be in kind here. But the fact of the matter is that among those pushing a presidential run in 2020, almost all of them want to raise taxes on the wealthy, some a lot more than others. The record holder could be Bernie Sanders, who wants a wealth or a death tax, as they like to call it, an estate tax upwards of 77%. To the Washington Free Beacon senior writer, Liz Harrington. Obviously very popular with the base, Liz, I get that. In a general election, maybe less so, although I have noticed in a lot of states that is something that resonates with voters, as long as it's not the very rich voters they're polling who would have to pay the tax. But what do you make of it?
Right. Well, the party's certainly moving towards the left, and it looks like everyone on the Democratic 2020 list is trying to outdo each other. First, you had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying we got to raise the marginal rate to 70%, and then everybody's come out, well, let's tax estates, like Bernie Sanders. Oh, Elizabeth Warren's tweeting about Dan Snyder's yacht kind of makes it seem like she wants to confiscate it to pay for her wealth tax. So they're all trying to outdo each other, and yes, I think the polling question sounds good to a lot of voters. They say, oh, well, sure, they have a lot of money. Why shouldn't they pay more taxes? But when you get into the numbers of how much their policies actually cost, there's just not enough money there to pay for them.
You know, you're right about that. You could tax the rich at 100% and not get there. And I get what some of them are trying to do is to forcibly narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. That's been something that's been happening for decades under Democratic and Republican presidents and Congresses alike. What I don't see either party addressing is the underlying spending that has created this, or the fact that half the people in this country who could pay taxes pay no federal taxes. Now, I'm not blaming them. Some are elderly, others pay FICA-related taxes. But I can remember in grad school that figure was north of 80%. So what worries me, and that was just a few years ago. All right, I lied. Maybe more than a few years. But my point is, we're relying on a narrower and narrower subset of Americans to foot an ever-increasing bill. That's not sustainable.
Well, exactly. And it's interesting because you have Howard Schultz saying that there's no room for him in the Democratic Party. That's why he's thinking about running as an independent.
And look how they're treating him. Look how they're treating him.
I was just in Seattle, and very liberal crowd, and he is a very liberal guy. He's totally on board with climate change, with changes to capitalism. He says there's problems with capitalism, but his main thing is we got a lot of debt, and how are we supposed to pay for $32 trillion Medicare for all? And you know what the crowd responded to him? They said expletives like
Absolutely.
You. They want to take the money from him. They think it's enough. It's the politics of envy have totally taken over the left. And that's why you have all their front runners coming out saying, let's soak the rich.
You know what's interesting, too? A lot of this is just slowing the growth of government. Forget about reversing it, but slow the growth of it. Medicare is growing at a 6% clip. Can we make it grow at a 3 or a 3.5% clip? The same with some of these other programs. There are answers there to do that, but each party sort of shields itself from that by one denying raising taxes at all, the other from addressing any entitlements at all, and then we get stuck in this freezer.
Exactly. It's a shame because the spending, we're taking in record revenues still with tax reform.
Absolutely.
We have enough money to spend, but apparently Congress can't ever address the spending problem. I think it's something that President Trump should address, because way back in 2000, when he was talking about possibly running for president in the future, he had a solution to try to start paying down the debt. And I think he needs to start addressing that more again, because it's a real problem on both sides that they need to address.
Yeah, but they're not doing that. Liz, always great having you. Liz Harrington, thank you very, very much.